Everyone played a pivotal role in building a team culture, unlike any other. Of course, I think we were pretty extraordinary. That's why I wanted to be a Bronco. But truth be told, we were also pretty ordinary in so many ways. A team just like any other, covering excessive numbers of kilometers, crisscrossing the flat prairies to different cities and towns. Aisle seat. Driver's side. We pulled out of the parking lot at the Elgar Peterson Arena in Humboldt, close to 2:50 p.m., and drove across the street, turned a corner, and arrived at our coach's house. Darcy Hogan was much more than a bench boss. He was the kind of coach whose influence stays with you for a lifetime. The kind of coach who was more interested in what kind of men his players become than how many points they score or how many games the team wins. His wife, Christina, had cooked a pre-game pasta meal for our team, each pre-packaged into containers for every person on the bus. I remember Darcy running into his house to grab a belt he'd forgotten for his suit. Or maybe it was his shoes. There are just so many of those small details that I try hard to remember these days, but simply can't. There are many things I do remember, though. Like how we took a slightly different route out of town that day. Just over halfway to Nipawin, we turned right towards Tisdale, instead of continuing on like we usually did. Another small detail that charted our course that day. Not a big deal. It was just a 5-minute detour. We hardly even noticed that our path had changed. From Tisdale, Nipawin was just 40 minutes away, and we were just a couple of hours from game time. The game was still the only thing that mattered. Most of us were still in our stylish charcoal gray Broncos tracksuits, which we always wore on the bus. These were the nicest tracksuits I have ever worn. Our suits were laid out flat in the overhead compartments above the seats. We turned out of Tisdale, heading north. Highway 35. When we practiced that morning, Darcy wanted to make sure we had taken care of every last detail. We had our backs to the wall against Nipawin, but we're not about to surrender. You'll know the feeling if you spent any time with a team that is facing elimination. As we continued to make our way north, we were all in various states of pre-game preparation. Some of us sat quietly. Others had their headphones on and were listening to music. A card game involving some of the guys was finishing up just in front of me, at the table with inverted seats. We were about 30 minutes out by then. So close. It was the most important game, and potentially the last of my junior career. I sat in my seat and turned on one of my go-to playlists to get ready. This was going to be the best game I would ever play in my life, the best game we would ever play in our lives. A few of the guys were standing in the aisle, putting on their suits. There was banter and laughter. I turned up the volume. Highway 335. And everything went black. Part 1. Chapter 1. One of the very first memories I have is of being in a hospital, desperate to get out. There were so many needles. I can still feel the sting pricking through my skin. The doctors and nurses stuck them all over my arms, prodding me like a human science experiment. It was the first time I ever used the word hate. I hate this doctor's house, I cried to my parents when he left the room. I'm going to throw this chair through the window so he tells me to go home. I was just shy of my 5th birthday. My mother and father had never heard that kind of rage come out of me before. It was hard for them to witness this new circumstance I faced. I'd been extremely healthy through the first few years of my young life, aside from the occasional cold and the chicken pox I caught from the babysitter's granddaughter. I was peeing so much more than usual. I was losing weight. I was sweaty and thirsty all the time. Mark, my father, got a call from the sitter that afternoon. She said I'd drunk everything my parents had sent and everything she had in the fridge. She also said I had thrown up, the first time I'd ever done that. He's just drinking and always wanting more, she told him. There's something going on. My dad came to pick me up right away. He and my mom are both nurses. They met at nursing school in Regina and started dating after they shared a practicum in Moose Jaw.